Welcome to the Works of Wonder podcast. This podcast was inspired by the powerful message of Beyond Words, the Art of Effectively Communicating with Your Children, written by Dr. Beth Long. Beth is a licensed professional counselor, a board-certified behavior analyst, and the founder of Works of Wonder Therapy here in Montgomery, Alabama. Each week, we'll talk through real stories, practical tools, and faith-rooted insights that help parents lead with grace rather than fear. We hope you enjoy it. All right. So today we're going to talk about lying. Lying is something that parents worry about all the time.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And you talk about in your book that lying can be a sign that they're still learning.
Yes.
It's a skill deficit. So one of the most frequent questions parents ask is, what do I do when my child lies? Why do you think this question is so emotionally loaded for parents?
Oh, that's a great question. I think that when a child lies, it sparks fear in the parent of what does that say about their character? What does that say about who the child is? And so they immediately imagine worst case scenario that they're going to have a kid who lies forever. And so I always try to tell parents, let's really look at the lie, but we also have to look at the developmental stage of the child because pretty much all children lie. All people lie at some point. So kind of what's behind the lie and why is it happening?
Right. And I feel like it can also be parents jumping to that poor character, like immediately, like he's going to be a liar forever.
Yes.
And this is my fault. Like, what did I do to make them lie? You explain in your book that not all lies are the same.
Right.
Why is it so important for parents to understand why a child is lying before reacting?
Okay, so let's use the example of if they're lying to protect someone. So let's say a little child was running through the house and accidentally knocked down a vase and broke it. The parent may come in the room really angry and the older sibling says, I did it. Well, that's a very different motive behind the lie than if they had lied and said he did it.
Right.
So we have to stop and react. I mean, we have to stop and reflect before we respond to it, because if not, we're going to just make the worst case assumption most of the time when lying is involved.
Right. It's that reactive parenting versus stopping.
Yes.
That's a topic all on its own.
It is. And I feel like that is when we make the worst decisions.
It's so true in like all aspects of our life.
Yes.
When children are very young, like toddlers and preschoolers, what looks like lying can often be actually healthy development.
Yes.
So can you speak on that? What's really happening at that stage?
That's a loaded question because it could be so many different things, right? Some of it is their perception of what's going on in the moment. So they're not lying. That's how they're perceiving reality, and it's developmentally okay because they're toddlers,
right?
Right. So they don't understand exactly, and they're still very at that stage. It's very me centered. So. A little boy who loves Tonka trucks is going to want to give you a Tonka truck because if he likes Tonka trucks, everybody loves Tonka truck, right? So the lie is truly kind of developmentally appropriate based on the fact that they're not fully understanding the reality of the situation.
You give an example of a child denying that he drew on the wall while holding a crayon in the book. And how would a parent best respond in that moment?
To best respond in that moment, which I did not do, let me confess, but the best response would be, we don't ask questions because to a younger child, it's just going to confuse them even more, right? The evidence is right there. They drew on the wall.
Right.
So then we take the crayon and we say, I will not let you draw on the wall. That's it. That's all you have to say. Let's clean this up together. And then we want to focus, what we give attention to grows. So we want to give attention to cleaning it up, doing the right thing. We don't want to give a lot of attention to drawing on the wall.
Interesting.
Because then we're going to get a lot more drawing on the wall.
Yeah.
So
that makes so much sense. As a parent, I'll find myself being like, why did you do that? And as soon as I ask that question, I'm like, well, why do I do the poor things? It just felt right in that moment.
Yes.
And teaching them long term, I love the focusing on the correction. I think that's cool. And why does that response matter long term for that child?
Because we want them to learn what they can and cannot do, right? At that stage, right? But it's a lot of just skill building and learning and growing and exploring. And so we want them to learn what they can and can't do. So they just made an honest mistake. Then they were probably afraid they were going to get in trouble, right?
Right.
So when we focus on this is an okay activity, this is not. We're meeting them exactly where they are, and we're teaching them. There's not a lot of manipulation or motive or anything behind a young child.
Right.
They're just growing and learning and exploring. And so we're giving them the appropriate opportunities. This is what you can do. This is what you can't do. This is how we learn and we move forward. But no matter what, I'm going to be right here with you, helping you do the right thing. That's the big overarching message.
Right. And just learning that when you do something wrong, you can work to fix it. Like that's your mindset. Oops. How can I fix this? How can I make this better?
Yes, exactly.
That's good.
Because you're going to make mistakes the rest of your life.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So as kids get older, we see this line shift from imagination to kind of skill-based challenges. Can you explain what you mean by lacking skill lies?
Yes. So, in the big overarching topic of this, children with ADHD lie frequently because they have impulse control issues, right? So I remember, I have ADHD, and I remember telling a lie for absolutely no reason when I was about 8 years old. This little old woman that we used to do some stuff. We used to help take care of her. She called us all the time. Anyway, she called one day, I answered the phone, and she said, "Did you go to the football game this morning?" And I said, "Yes." It meant nothing more than I just want to have this conversation and get off the phone, right? I got in massive trouble for it. But it was just impulse control. There was no thought or motive or anything behind it other than I just couldn't control the impulse because I just want to get off the phone. So that happens a lot. For children on the spectrum, it happens a lot because they don't understand exactly what you're asking, or they don't have the skill to respond to exactly what you're asking as quickly as you want them to respond.
What are some of the skills that are lacking? Can you give examples of, like, if they're lying consistently, what are they trying to overcome?
So, depending on the child, can I use your son as an example?
Absolutely.
Okay, because we were just talking about this. So he is lying to get attention, right? But not like you said he was making up facts so that his younger brothers thought he was interesting, right? So the lack of skill is that he can't initiate that conversation appropriately. So we have to teach him, like, here are all the things you can talk about. This is how you start a conversation. This is how you get the appropriate attention of other people. Right. Or so it's that. But then a lot of times it comes down to the nuances of a conversation, and that's tricky for a child to understand. So and then we, especially women, we talk too much to children. So when we say, "Hey, tell me why you did this," right? Like that's a very complex question. And like you just said, I don't know why I do a lot of what I do. No. So, but it requires a lot of like thinking about what you did and then gathering the words. So the easy way out is just to tell a lie. So, yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah. The types of lies are super common. These types of lies are super common with ADHD and on autism. And what are parents often misunderstanding about them?
The number one thing is they're assuming worst case scenario.
Right. It goes back to that.
Yes. So instead of going, let me step back and help my child learn to communicate more effectively. Okay. Let me step back and help my child think before responding. Let me step back and help my child have some space to think before they respond, right? Because when we ask children a question, we typically want the answer immediately.
Right.
So it's a lot of us asking black and white questions, or if the evidence is right in front of us, don't ask a question, just go with what you got. Like I learned to never ask my children if they had homework. I immediately went to their backpack, got their folder, did whatever I needed to do to go, okay, this is what we have to do. Right. Because if you ask a kid, do you have homework? They may say no, and they may or may not be lying, because it may be like they're 6 years old and they just can't remember. Right. But making that assumption of I'm going to set my child up for success instead of they're a horrible person, I'm so worried they're a liar, right? Very different approaches.
Right. Well, and they have like their brains are just firing. So giving them just simple like structure, black and white is super helpful. I love that in my life when it's just like, this is what I have to do.
Yes, me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
So one of the other types of lies is protecting. You mentioned that earlier. So like siblings, parents, or friends. What does that tell us about a child's emotional and moral development?
That they're right on target.
Perfect.
Right? So that's actually a great sign. It means they're thinking about cause and effect and what will happen, and like, I know I want to protect someone here. I want to protect their feelings. I want to protect them from getting in trouble. So that means great job, Mom and Dad. You're doing a great job.
Oh, we always need to hear that. So how can parents validate the empathy in those moments without reinforcing dishonesty?
I think they just need to go out of their way to validate the empathy first. And then maybe even the next day come back around and go, hey, but it's never okay to lie.
Oh, like a whole, wow.
Because you don't want the combination. You don't want that praise and that correction to be combined, because they're actually two separate things.
Okay.
And when we call it pairing in the field of behavior analysis, but like if I pair the correction for the empathy with, if I pair the praise for the empathy with the correction for the lie, then in our brains, right? Have you ever been in a situation where, like, for example, I was driving to a restaurant one time. I got a phone call of horrible news. I never ate at that restaurant again.
Oh, yeah.
Right? My brain paired those two things together. So we don't want to pair those two things together, because we want them to truly, those are two totally separate things. Right. And it's great that you had empathy. It's still not okay to lie.
Interesting. Okay. So not a compliment sandwich.
Not a compliment sandwich. Exactly.
Okay. You want like a compliment appetizer, and then the next day you're going to come back around. And interesting. Okay. I've never heard that. Can you give us some like verbiage? What would that, like, how would we actually say those words? Hey, I see that you're being empathetic. Can you give us...
Yeah. I would use almost like protective.
Okay.
Like, I understand that you wanted to protect your little brother, and that is great.
Period. So then you just stop.
Yes.
Okay.
Because, and you can change it a little bit to like protecting other people is great, like all of that. But yeah, we don't have to go into a big long lecture, because pretty much we've lost a kid anyway.
That's true.
Right?
Yes.
And it's probably going to take you, in that particular situation, it's going to take you a couple of days to figure it out, even what happened,
Okay.
So the honesty probably came out. Do you remember when Mike broke the vase? And you're like, no, you said you broke the vase.
Interesting. So another type of lie that you talk about in the book is lying to avoid punishment. When that happens, what should parents focus on teaching instead of punishing?
Teaching, right? I think we all know that saying of like, I'd rather my child tell the truth than be punished for what they did wrong, right? So do that. Okay. Focus on telling the truth. If they lied to a teacher, make them write a note to the teacher apologizing for the lie and telling the truth. Go out of your way to help them practice all the ways they could have told the truth.
Okay. And
then observe anytime they tell the truth when it was hard, and praise it. And especially when I'm in therapy, if I'm teaching a child not to lie, I'm going to kind of create a situation where they might be tempted to lie. And then I'll say, even if you said, I didn't do it, if you come back immediately and say, actually I did, I was afraid I would get in trouble. Okay, then you're learning to tell the truth. And over time, the brain's going to go, I did it. I'm sorry. Please don't be mad, or whatever. Right. So we just have to help them understand facing the truth and the consequences is always the best choice. Right. Because it will catch up with you. Right. Like the Bible says, all sin will come to light. Like it's going to come out. It's so much better if it comes out immediately than if it comes out later.
You emphasize natural consequences and repair. Why are those more effective for building character than harsh discipline?
Because the natural consequences are great teachers.
Yeah.
Right? If writing the letter to my teacher to say, hey, I lied, That's hard. It's the right thing to do, but it's hard. But that's going to stick with the child so much more than a lecture or taking away something they love.
Yeah.
Or even spanking them. Like the natural consequence is going to naturally teach them to make better choices. So always try to find that.
Right. It makes sense. Like you don't, as an adult, you don't go, oh, I'm not going to lie because then I'm going to lose my phone. You know, I can't look at my phone for a day. Right. No, you're not going to lie because you don't want the natural consequence of having to uphold that lie later on, or if it comes to light and that embarrassment, like that is what you're trying to avoid.
Yes, exactly.
Right. That makes sense. So parents also worry about tall tales and exaggerated stories, right? I remember my sister would just tell the biggest stories and we were like, none of that is true. That worries parents, right? They're afraid of this pathological liar. How can we tell the difference between imagination and intentional deception?
I think you have to step back always, right? Step back and kind of go, what are they getting from this? Are they getting attention? Well, we don't want to, depending on their age and situation, we don't want to give attention to lying, but we do want to give attention to their imagination, right? So if it's a younger kid or a child who they're at that stage of development where like they had a dream and they don't know that that's not what happened, you know? And I think that happens sometimes. Like I had all of my symptoms of COVID were psychological, which was crazy. Yeah. So I would have these very intense dreams of real life. So for example, I had this dream that I had a conversation with this mom that I had worked with at work, and that she requested this information, and then it came out. So I sent her the information, and then she said, "Thank you so much. Why'd you send me this?" And I said, "Do you remember that conversation?" She said, "That didn't happen." Okay, things like that happened to me a lot. And then I was happy when I found that happened to other people with COVID. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Some of that is happening to children. They're having a dream or they're daydreaming, and the story happens, and they're not 100% sure that it didn't happen in reality because it was so active in their brain. Wow. So when that happens, we just join in with them.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, tell me about that lion. Like, what happened? What, you know, like, it's really okay. But then if you have a child who's telling those stories to get attention, very upfront and honest, don't embarrass them, right? If they're telling a group of people, don't like, stop, that didn't happen. Yes. But on one-on-one, that is not what happened. You have to say, this is a story I'm making up, or this is a story you might find funny, as opposed to just jumping into the story and expecting people to believe you. Because some of those children just want to be the center of attention, and we just have, it's okay that they do, because a lot of them are hilarious.
Right. Oh, so fun.
Yes. So like, here's how you do it. Here's how you don't do it.
Okay. Interesting. And then what would you say to a parent who feels discouraged or worries that they're messing it up with lying?
Join the club.
Yeah, honestly.
That's what I would say. But I would say a couple of things. One is I've heard parents jump to conclusions that, like, a little tiny mistake. If I'm telling a story, I might make a mistake in that story, and I'm going to keep on rolling because it doesn't matter. Don't correct your child for every little teeny tiny mistake because that's very different from a lie.
Okay.
Right? Right. And then always doing it in private instead of in public. And those things, but then always just, it is so much better to not react than to react. And I wish more people were saying that to parents, because I think we were all taught, you have to handle it in the moment. You have to, right? Like, if it's aggressive or destructive behavior, yes, stop it. But sometimes if you just step back and observe what's going on here, you can understand better exactly what's going on in that moment and how to respond to it correctly. But when we react, we make poor decisions.
Yeah.
So
we do. Well, thank you so much for this. Don't forget to pick up your copy of Beyond Words. It's on Amazon, and you can find it through our website. We'll link all of that in the show notes. We also have Dr. Beth Long is on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. She's doing big things over there. She actually has a couple videos on lying that are really good. And then Works of Wonder Therapy is also on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. So give us a follow. All that will be linked below. And
Always be kind and honest because it works wonders.
It does.